Hello there, and a very, very warm welcome to my YouTube. My name's Chris, and today I'm taking a look at something that happened back in 1943, and it all started, believe it or not, with a wooden horse.
It's the same old problem. The longer the tunnel, the longer it takes to dig, and the longer time the goons have to struggle. What we've got to do is start a short tunnel right out here on the city.
Halt! Wer da? Halt! Wer da?
A key element in Flight Lieutenant Eric Williams' escape plan was a wooden vaulting horse made from Red Cross crates, and this would be carried out of the recreation hut by 4 fellow prisoners while 1 or 2 of the escapers clung on inside the vaulting horse. The vaulting horse was always set down in the same spot, and working from inside the horse while a group of prisoners vaulted over it, they began excavating their tunnel and carefully replacing the topsoil each day. Under the noses of the guards, the prisoners had to continue exercising over the vaulting horse, despite their poor physical condition caused by near-starvation diet. And the further the tunnel grew, the longer the vaulters had to go on jumping. The excavated soil was a sandy yellow colour and contrasted with the brown topsoil, so it is hidden in many ingenious places, including inside prisoners' trousers, and these men would walk around the compound, allowing the dirt to slowly trickle down their trousers, trickle down their trouser legs and onto the ground. They were usually followed by other prisoners who nonchalantly treaded the sand into the ground and disguising the soil that had been spread around, and that masks the trail. Sometimes the horse would be carried out empty and accidentally knocked over. On one occasion, the prisoners even left the vaulting horse, which covered the tunnel entrance, and ran a circuit round the compound. These incidents helped to allay any suspicion among the watching guards. Gradually, a shaft was sunk, and 4.5 months they tunnelled, overcoming a succession of almost fatal setbacks, and eventually the tunnel passed beneath the wire perimeter, and one night in October 1943, 3 men made good their escape, and they were Flight Lieutenant Eric Williams, Flight Lieutenant Oliver Philpot, and Lieutenant Michael Codner. Later that night, a guard walking outside the wire stumbled when his foot disappeared into a hole in the ground. The alarm was raised, but the 3 escapees were long gone. I'd like to say a really huge thank you for all my new subscribers, and for those that haven't subscribed, it would be really very much appreciated if you did. It costs nothing, there's no hassle, nobody will pester you, and it's very much appreciated by myself. We're going to hear an interview now with some of the POWs that were in Stalag Luft III, Dick Churchill and John Caldwell.
Are you wounded? Twisted ankle. Twisted ankle, but that's all. You can walk after all.
I landed near a farmhouse and asked the local owners, if they knew where the Germans were, and they pointed out the door and said, well, there's 3 of them there.
You suddenly arrived at a place where there was no food, no books, no freedom, nothing to listen to. So that was a fairly depressing effect. I think it's natural that one doesn't want to be put in a cage.
When you first get there, you see all these old parts wandering around the camp, and you think, why haven't they escaped? You know, you've just had freedom. Why couldn't they escape? And then you realize that you go up to the wire and you're going to climb the wire, and there's a guy there with in the goon box with a machine gun watching you. And you realize you've lost your freedom and it's gone for all time. That's a hell of a shock then. And then you have to adjust to that.
It's very interesting to read about the POWs in captivity. And in Eric Williams' book, The Wooden Horse, he talks about, well, he calls this chap David. He has blue seaman's eyes and a fiery beard. He seemed to have lost all interest in escape, though he had made several daring attempts before. But now he was running a farm on paper, and all his books were about farming. At the right time of the year, he would sow his crops, and in due course he would harvest them. He kept a profit and loss account, and it was funny how seriously he took it. If it rained on a day when he had decided to reap his harvest, he'd walk about with a face of doom. If, during a dry spell, one of the others remarked on the fine weather, he would mutter something about the oats need rain. Peter smiled as he remembered the occasion when the lower meadows were flooding, and David drove a flock of sheep to the safety of the hillside above the farm. Imaginary sheep, of course. The guards had been alarmed when the whole hut turned out to help him drive the sheep across the compound. They had reached for their Tommy guns, and when they saw the throng of hissing, whistling, shouting prisoners driving nothing towards the fence. But the upper meadow was inside the wire, and no shots were fired. So this was how some people coped with the concept of confinement. A very, very difficult time. From that day of escape on the 29th of October 1943 from Stalag Luft III, the 3 men, Flight Lieutenant Eric Williams, Lieutenant Michael Codner, and Flight Lieutenant Oliver Philpot, having dug the tunnel and escaped, they then boarded a train posing as foreign workers. They travelled northeast across Germany to Danzig, a port city on the Baltic Sea. Then it was part of Germany, now it's part of Poland. From Danzig they stowed away on a Swedish ship. Sweden was a neutral country during World War II. Philpot went separately while Williams and Codner travelled together. All 3 managed to get on different ships that took them to neutral Sweden. After reaching neutral Sweden, they contacted the British consulate. Arrangements were made for their safe return via aircraft or diplomatic transport. They were returned to Britain via Scotland by the RAF. Eventually, Flight Lieutenant Eric Williams, Flight Lieutenant Oliver Philpot and Lieutenant Michael Codner were taken by train back down to London, where they were thoroughly debriefed by MI9, hailed as heroes, but unfortunately in some ways their story was kept secret until after the war to avoid compromising future escape attempts. I really hope you found this of some interest. It was always a fascinating book to read, The Wooden Horse, and of course the 1950 film also was very, very fascinating. I look forward to seeing you on the next film. Take the greatest of care, all the very best, and cheers for now.